Shalom, brothers and sisters of the Most High. How are you tonight? Tonight, we continue our journey through Jubilees. We're going to be going over chapter 7, 8, and 9. So if you've got a book with the Dead Sea Scrolls in it, go ahead and grab it and flip to Jubilees 7, 8, and 9. Okay? And let's get started tonight. I'll wait for you for a second to get your books and get ready to go. Grab something to drink. Get comfortable. So, hope everybody's having a good week. Clear the pipes. Get a drink of coffee. And we'll get going this evening. Alright. Jubilees. Chapter 7. In the 7th week, in the first year of it, in this Jubilee, Noah planted vines on the mountain on which the ark had rested, named Lebar, one of the Ararat mountains, and they produced fruit in the 4th year, and he guarded their fruit and gathered it in that year in the 7th month. He made wine from it, and put it into a vessel, and kept it until the 5th year, until the 1st day, on the new moon of the 1st month. And he celebrated with joy that day of the feast, of this feast. And he made a burnt sacrifice to Yahweh, 1 young ox, and 1 ram, and 7 sheep, each a year old, and a kid of the goats, that he might make atonement thereby for himself and his sons. He prepared the kid first, and placed some of its blood on the flesh that was on the altar that he had made, and all the fat he laid on the altar where he made the burnt sacrifice, and the ox, and the ram, and the sheep, and he laid all their flesh on the altar. He placed all their offerings mingled with oil on it, and afterwards he sprinkled wine on the fire which had previously been made on the altar, and he placed incense on the altar, and caused a sweet odor to rise up, which was acceptable before Yahweh his Elohim. And he rejoiced, and he and his children drank the wine with joy. It was evening, and he went into his tent, and being drunken he lay down and slept, and was uncovered in his tent as he slept. And Ham saw Noah his father naked, and went out and told his 2 brothers. He ridiculed his father to his 2 brothers, it's in parentheses, who were outside. Shem took his garment and arose, he and Japheth, and they placed the garment on their shoulders and went backward and covered the shame of their father, and their faces were backward. Alright, let's stop there for a second. This doesn't go into it. But when you do your research, and I suggest that you do your research, in the Bible, it says he uncovered the skirt of his father. Which when you translate all of that, because words have meanings, when you translate all of that, it means that he slept with his mother. Alright? I know some people are going to say, no way, but yeah, there you go. There again, the being a deviant, okay? Sexual deviance. He slept with his mother. Do the research. Don't take my word for it because it's just my pea brain talking. But that's what I found when I did the research. It's mentioned other places in the Bible. Okay? There are other places in the Bible that speaks of seeing the nakedness of his father's skirt. And then when we get there, you'll see it. I'll point it out. Okay? But do your own research. Okay? Verse 10. Noah woke from his sleep and knew all that his younger son had done to him. And he cursed his son and said, Cursed be Canaan, and enslaved servant shall he be to his brothers. Okay, so he cursed Ham's firstborn son, the inheritor of the bloodline for Ham. Firstborn son, okay? That's who Noah cursed. Why? Because the firstborn son is the inheritor of the bloodline, and that curse is going to carry down through the generations. That's just how it works. And as we read along, you're going to see how the firstborn son is the inheritor always. Okay? Now, some people are going to say, there's some research out there that says that the reason that Noah did this was because Ham's wife was of impure blood, and nobody knew it until one of the kids was born. Okay? I don't know. I'm not sure. All I know is I've done the research on it, and I've seen both things. And when you get further into the Bible and you understand what the meaning of the nakedness of his father's skirt is, then you see how this is all affected. So this is going to carry down through the bloodlines of Ham. And as you're going to see, Ham ends up being Mitzrayim, Sodom and Gomorrah. All of those places is where Ham settles. So, yeah. Okay, let's continue. Okay, verse 11. And he blessed Shem and said, Blessed be the Elohim, Yahweh of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Yahweh shall enlarge Japheth, and Yahweh shall dwell in the dwelling of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Ham knew that his father had cursed him, his younger son, and he was displeased that he had cursed him, his son. And Ham parted from his father, and he, his sons with him, Cush, and Mitzrayim, and Put, and Canaan. And he built for himself a city, and called its name after the name of his wife, Ne Elata Amen Uak. Japheth saw it, and became envious of his brother, and he too built for himself a city, and he called its name after the name of his wife, Adantana Esses. Shem dwelt with his father Noah, and he built a city close to his father on the mountain, and he too called its name after the name of his wife, Sedek Etel Abab. These three cities are near Mount Lubar, Sedek Labab in front of the mountain on its east, Na-Letah Ma Uek on the south, Adat Anas Esses toward the west. These are the sons of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arpachshad, who was born 2 years after the flood, and Lud, and Aram. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Maadai, Yavan, Tubal, and Meshach, and Taras. These are the descendants of Noah. In the 28th Jubilee, Noah began to direct his sons in the ordinances and commandments, and all the judgments that he knew. And he exhorted his sons to observe righteousness, and to cover the shame of their flesh, and to bless their Elohim, and honor father and mother, and love their neighbor, and guard their souls from fornication, and uncleanness, and all iniquity. Because of these three things came the flood on the earth, namely, the fornication that the watchers committed against the law of their ordinances when they went whoring after the daughters of men, and took themselves wives of all they chose, and they made the beginning of uncleanness. And they begot sons, the Nephilim, and they were all dissimilar, and they devoured one another. And the giants killed the Nephil, and the Nephil killed the Eligio, and the Eligio killed mankind, and one man killed another. Everyone committed himself to crime and injustice and to shed much blood, and the earth was filled with sin. After this, they sinned against the beasts and the birds and all that moved and walked on the earth, and much blood was shed on the earth, and men continually desired only what was useless and evil. And the Lord destroyed everything from the face of the earth because of the wickedness of their deeds, and because of the blood they had shed over all the earth. He destroyed everything. Verse 26, we were left, I and you, my sons, and everything that entered with us into the ark. And behold, I see your works before me, that you do not walk in righteousness. For in the path of destruction you have begun to walk, and you are turning one against another, and are envious one of another. And so it comes that you are not in harmony, my sons, each with his brother. For I see the demons have begun their seductions against you, and against your children. And now I fear on your behalf, that after my death you will shed the blood of men on the earth, and that you, too, will be destroyed from the face of the earth. For whoever sheds man's blood, and whoever eats the blood of any flesh, shall all be destroyed from the earth. There shall be no man left that eats blood, or that sheds the blood of man on the earth, nor shall there be left to him any offspring or descendants living under the heaven. Into the abode of the dead shall they go, and into the place of condemnation shall they descend, and into the darkness of the deep shall they all be removed by a violent death. Do not smear blood on yourselves, or let it remain on you. Out of all the blood there shall be shed, and out of all the days in which you have killed any beast or cattle, or whatever flies on the earth, you must do a good work to your souls by covering that which has been shed on the face of the earth. You shall not be like him who eats blood, but guard yourselves that none may eat blood before you. Cover the blood, for thus I have commanded to testify to you and your children together with all flesh. Do not permit the soul to be eaten with the flesh, that your blood, which is your life, may not be required at the hand of any flesh that sheds it on the earth. For the earth will not be clean from the blood that has been shed on it, for only through the blood of him that shed it will the earth be purified throughout all its generations. Now, my children, listen. I have judgment and righteousness, that you may be planted in righteousness over the face of the whole earth, and your glory lifted up in the presence of my Elohim, who spared me from the waters of the flood. Look, you will go and build for yourselves cities, and plant in them all the plants that are on the earth, and moreover all fruit-bearing trees. For 3 years the fruit of everything that is eaten will not be gathered, and in the 4th year its fruit will be accounted holy, offered at first fruit, acceptable before the Most High Yahweh, who created heaven and earth and all things. Let them offer in abundance the first of the wine and oil as first fruits on the altar of the Elohim, who receives it, and what is left let the servants of the house of the Elohim eat before the altar which receives it. In the 5th year make the release, so that you release it in righteousness and uprightness, and you shall be righteous, and all that you plant shall prosper. For this is how Enoch did it. The father of your father commanded Methuselah his son, and Methuselah commanded his son Lamech, and Lamech commanded me all the things that his father had commanded him, because Enoch got it straight from the mouth of Yahweh. Verse 39, I also will give you commandment, my sons, as Enoch commanded his son in the first Jubilee, while still living. The seventh in his generation, he commanded and testified to his son and to his son's sons until the day of his death. But see, Enoch didn't die. Enoch was taken by Yahweh. Chapter 8. In the 29th Jubilee, in the beginning of the first week, Arpachshad took to himself a wife, and her name was Rasu-Eyah, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam. And she gave birth to a son in the 3rd year in this week, and he called his name Canaan. The son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize a city for himself. He found writing which former generations had carved on a rock, and he read what was on it, and he transcribed it and sinned because of it, for it contained the teaching of the washers, which they had used to observe the omens of the sun and the moon and the stars in all the signs of heaven. He wrote it down and said nothing of it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, or he would be angry with him because of it. In the 30th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year of it, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Milcah, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And in the 4th year he begot a son, and he called his name Shelah, for he said, Truly I have been sent. Shelah grew up and took to himself a wife, and her name was Muach, the daughter of Kesed, his father's brother, in the 31st Jubilee, in the 5th week, in the 1st year of it. And she gave birth to a son in the 5th year of it, and he called his name Eber. And he took to himself a wife, and her name was Azarad, the daughter of Nebrod. In the 32nd Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the 3rd year of it. In the 6th year of it, she gave birth to a son, and he called his name Peleg. For in the days when he was born, the children of Noah began to divide the earth among themselves. For this reason he called his name Peleg. They divided it secretly amongst themselves and told it to Noah. In the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee, they divided the earth into 3 parts, for Shem, Ham, and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each. In the 1st year, in the 1st week, when one of the angels, who had been sent was with them, he called his sons, and they drew close to him, they and their children, and he divided the earth into the lots, which his 3 sons were to take in possession, and they reached out their hands and took the writing out of the arms of Noah, their father. There came out on the writing as Shem's lot in the middle of the earth, that he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons for the generations of eternity. From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water from the river Tina, and his portion goes toward the west through the middle of this river, and it extends until it reaches the water of the abyss, out of which this river goes out and pours its waters into the sea Miat. And this river flows into the great sea. And that is toward the north is Japheth's, and all that is toward the south belong to Shem, and it extends until it reaches Carasso. This is in the center of the tongue of land that looks toward the south. His portion extends along the great sea, and it extends in a straight line until it reaches the west of the tongue that looks toward the south, for this sea is named the tongue of the Egyptian sea. And it turns from here toward the south, toward the mouth of the great sea on the shore of its waters, and it extends to the west to Aphra, and it extends until it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon, to the banks of this river. It extends toward the east until it reaches the Garden of Eden, to the south of it, and from the east of the whole land of Eden and of the whole east. It turns to the east and proceeds until it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha, and it descends to the banks of the mouth of the river Tina. This portion came out by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever to his generations forever. Noah rejoiced that this portion came out for Shem and for his sons, and he remembered all that he had spoken with his mouth in prophecy, for he had said, Blessed be the Lord God, blessed be Yahweh, Elohim of Shem, and that the Elohim dwell in the dwelling of Shem. He knew that the Garden of Eden is the holiest of holies, and the dwelling of the Elohim, and Mount Sinai the center of the desert, and Mount Zion which is on the center of the navel of the earth. These three were created as holy places facing each other, and he blessed Elohim of Elohims, who had put the word of the Elohim into his mouth, and the Elohim forever. And he knew that the blessed portion and the blessing had come to Shem and his sons, and to their generations forever, which was the whole land of Eden, and the whole land of the Red Sea, and the whole land of the east and India, and on the Red Sea, and the mountains of it, and all the land of Bashan, and all the land of Lebanon, and the islands of Kutar, and all the mountains of Shinar, and Ammana, and the mountains of Ashur to the north, and all the land of Elam, Ashur, and Babel, and Susan, and Maadai, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the regions beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Ashur, toward the north, a blessed and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. Ham received the second portion, beyond the Gihon, toward the south to the right of the garden, and it extends toward the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire, and it extends toward the west to the sea of Atal, and it extends toward the west until it reaches the sea of Ma'uk, which was that sea into which everything that is not destroyed descends. It goes out toward the north to the limits of Gadir, and it goes out to the coast of the waters of the sea to the waters of the great sea until it draws near to the river Gihon, and goes along the river Gihon until it reaches the right of the Garden of Eden. This is the land that came out for Ham as a portion which he was to occupy forever for himself and his sons to their generations forever. Japheth received the third portion beyond the river Tina to the north of the outflow of its waters, and it extends northeasterly to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east of it. It extends northerly, and it extends to the mountains of Quelt toward the north, and toward the sea of Ma'uk, and it goes out to the east of Gedar, as far as the region of waters of the sea. It extends until it approaches the west of Farah, and it returns toward Aphrag, and it extends easterly to the waters of the sea of Meat. And it extends to the region of the river Tina, and in a northeasterly direction until it approaches the boundary of its waters toward the mountain Rapha, and it turns round toward the north. This is the land that came out for Japheth and his sons as a portion of his inheritance, that he should possess 5 great islands, and the great land in the north, for himself and his sons, for their generations forever. But it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot, and the land of Shem is neither hot nor cold, but it is blended cold and heat. Okay, now remember that the Pharisees wrote this before Christ was ever born, before Yehoshua was born. The Pharisees wrote all of this. So all of these lands had names by this time. Back in the day of Noah, none of these lands had these names because these names came from the descendants of Noah. All the names of the land came from the names of Noah's sons. Okay? So just remember that, excuse me, when you're reading all of this, that the Pharisees, that the names of the cities were already established. There was none of this out there. Noah just said, hey, your land is from this river to this river, your land is from this mountain to this river, and so forth. All of these lands were already established by the time the Pharisees wrote this in what was it, 150 to 200 BC? Okay, so that tells you that. So, if you want, you can look up these places because they're cities, they're established cities, or they were at one time. Excuse me, and you'll know where the boundaries are. Okay, because you'll see it on a map where the boundaries are according to where they were supposed to live. Okay? Alright, chapter 9. Ham divided among his sons, and the first portion came out for Cush toward the east, and to the west of him for Mizraim, and to the west of him for Put, and to the west of him on the sea for Canaan. Shem also divided among his sons, and the first portion came out for Elam his sons, to the east of the river Tigris, until it approaches the east, the whole land of India, and on the Red Sea on its coast, and its waters of Dedan, and all the mountains of Meribah, and Elah, and all the land of Susan, and all that is on the side of Farnach, to the Red Sea, and to the river Tina. Ashur received the second portion, all the land of Ashur, and Nineveh, and Shinar, and to the border of India, and it ascends and skirts the river. Arpachshad received the third portion, all the land of the region of the Chaldees to the east of the Euphrates, bordering on the Red Sea, and all the waters of the desert, close to the tongue of the sea which looks towards Egypt, Mitzrayim, and all the land of Lebanon, and Shinar, and Armana, to the border of the Euphrates. Aram received the fourth portion, all the land of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and the Euphrates to the north of the Chaldees, to the border of the mountains of Ashur, and the land of Ararah. Lud got the fifth portion, the mountains of Ashur, and all the surrounding to them, until it reaches the Great Sea, and until it reaches the east of Ashur his brother. Japheth also divided the land of his inheritance among his sons. The first portion came out for Gomer, to the east, from the north side of the river Tina, and in the north there came out for Magog, all the inner portions of the north, until it reaches to the sea of Miat. Madai received as his portion that he should possess from the west of his two brothers the islands, and to the coasts of the islands. Yavon got the fourth portion, every island and the islands that are toward the border of Lud. For Tubal there came out the fifth portion in the middle of the tongue that approaches toward the border of the portion of Lud, to the second tongue, to the region beyond the second tongue, to the third tongue. Meshech received the sixth portion, that is the entire region beyond the third tongue, until it approaches the east of Gedir. Taras got the seventh portion, for four great islands in the middle of the sea, which reaches to the portion of Ham, and the islands of Kitabaturai came out by lot for the sons of Arpachshad as his inheritance. Thus the sons of Noah divided to their sons in the presence of Noah their father, and he bound them all by an oath, and invoked a curse on every one that sought to seize any portion which had not fallen to him by his lot. They all said, So be it, so be it, for themselves and their sons forever throughout their generations, until the day of judgment, on which Yahweh Elohim shall judge them with a sword and with fire, for all their unclean wickedness of their errors, that they should have filled the earth with, which are transgression, uncleanness, and fornication, and sin. Okay, and that ends chapter 9. It's kind of confusing because of the fact that this was written way after all of this happened. I know, it's confusing. But if you're intent on finding out, you need to look it up yourself. It's important that you look it up for yourself. That way you understand how great the land was that they're talking about. They're talking about all the way up into Russia, the entire Middle East, all the Greek islands, everything, all the way into Africa is what they're talking about. It's a gigantic portion of land, okay, that the three sons of Noah split up and gave to their sons. So you can see how the tribes all spread out across the land, okay, to inhabit the earth. It's very confusing. And there's a lot here, and you have to keep in mind that the Pharisees wrote this during the time of the Maccabees, which were a mountain tribe that lived in the area of Judah during the time of the Greek occupation, when Greece invaded. Alexander the Great invaded all that area and took over Jerusalem. So that gives you a timetable in which to be able to place all of this that's been written, even though it is according to an angel talking to Moshe. Okay, so you got to make sure that you put everything in context with all of this, or else you're going to be so confused, you're not going to know up from down, because a lot of these places, they didn't exist. They weren't named. They weren't named cities at the time. They weren't named until after they were occupied by whoever it was that occupied them. That was a child of Ham, Japheth, and oh man, my brain is going crazy now. Anyway, the children of Noah. Okay? I got so much going through my head that I can't even remember what I'm saying here. It's very, very confusing. And I'm sure that all of you are just as confused. I've read this like 3 times. And every time I read it, I have to take a section at a time and deduce it down and try to figure it out and try to understand it. It's very difficult to understand, especially if you don't know your Bible. So, once again, I'm going to suggest that if you're so confused in this, that you need to go back to Genesis 1:1 and reread all of it. Okay? All of Genesis, all of Exodus, the whole Torah. Okay? Deuteronomy, Numbers, all of it. Okay? And understand what all of this is and how it all works together. Okay? I know, it's really crazy, but that's the only way to understand all of this. It's very difficult. But I hope you're sticking with me through the study. I hope you're doing your own research and not just listening to what I'm reading, or else we're all lost. I need to do more research. I need to dive deeper into this. I get really busy with my studies of the Bible, and the extra-canonicals have a tendency to get pushed aside. That's probably how it should be, though, because they are extra-canonical. So, anyway, that's all I've got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed the study, and I hope you kind of understand what's going on here. And stick with me. We'll continue on through it. And then maybe you'll have a record of all of this. So when we get through the Bible, all the way to Revelation 22, then maybe some of this will be able to understand a little better, or your further research will help you to understand a little better. Okay? All right. Y'all have a good night, and I'll see you on Shabbat. Shalom.